LSU flips a cornerback from Texas. Corey Raymond's on fire, y'all. It's Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks for being with us, and thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts. So please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. We're available on YouTube as well. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Brian Kelly met with reporters Saturday after the team's long workout. I want to let you hear what Brian Kelly had to say about the progress his team has made both offensively and defensively, and I'll react to that. That's coming up, but we got to start with the gigantic news from Sunday. For the second day in a row, LSU has landed a commitment for the class of 2025. And for the second day in a row, they've pulled the rug out from under an SEC rival, as it were. Of course, on Saturday night, LSU landed tight end Mike Tyler out of Columbia, South Carolina. And we've talked about it plenty. Brian Kelly's proficiency with recruiting and developing tight ends, amazing. Mike Tyler, right in South Carolina's backyard. And LSU goes in and steals the tight end prospect. Well, if you were here for our episode on Sunday talking about Mike Tyler's commitment, I told you there were 3 names to keep an eye on that could be set to flip to LSU. And one of them was cornerback Kade Phillips. Well, on Sunday, and by the way, hat tip to Shea Dixon on 3, the Bengal Tiger. Shea's awesome with us every week, and Shea's the one who planted that seed. Well, Sunday afternoon, lo and behold, Kade Phillips did in fact flip from Texas to LSU. And let me give you a little bit of a thumbnail first on Kade Phillips. So this is a big-time cornerback prospect, okay? He's a 4-star, 6 foot, 185. He's out of Missouri City, Texas. That's the Houston area. He flips from Texas to LSU. And what you know I say this all the time. I'm not as concerned with the star rank, the rating, the ranking, all that stuff as I am with the offer list. Listen to this offer list. It's 3 pages long, by the way. LSU, Texas, Texas A&M, Baylor, Arizona State, Oregon, Auburn, Michigan, Penn State, Missouri, Ole Miss, TCU, SMU, Nebraska, Arkansas, Stanford, Houston, Michigan State, Purdue, Arizona. We could go on and on. It is a long list, y'all. Long list. That's the kind of prospect you're talking about with Kade Phillips. He is in the composite, the number 164 overall prospect and the number 18 corner. On 3 thinks even more highly of Kade Phillips. On 3 ranks Kade Phillips as the 65th best player in the country at any position and the 7th best cornerback. So a top 10 corner and a top 100 player by a wide margin, according to On 3. So how did LSU get this done with Kade Phillips? He gave an interview to On 3, talked about the environment there, how LSU, even after he committed to Texas, LSU never gave up. But how about this quote? Kade Phillips, quote, "I feel like I can really be developed into something big. And being able to be coached by Coach Raymond is important. He really played a big part in my recruitment, never really losing hope or sight of me and calling me every day." Y'all, I'm going to say this again. I've said it a lot of times. Since Brian Kelly was hired, didn't retain Corey Raymond. Since things didn't go great at Florida with Corey Raymond. Since Brian Kelly now has rehired Corey Raymond. And we've continued to see this class build and this offseason. A lot of y'all, and you know who you are. I ain't trying to start a fight. But you know who you are. A lot of y'all tried to tell me Corey Raymond couldn't coach. Corey Raymond lost his fastball. Corey Raymond couldn't recruit. Corey Raymond stopped recruiting at the end of the tenure with Ed Ogeron. And I told y'all over and over and over again, as a coach, you never forget how to teach how to backpedal and flip your hips and all that sort of stuff. Pete Jenkins was 82 years old, came in last year and made LSU's defensive line appreciably better because he's the greatest defensive line coach technically of all time in the history of this game. Corey Raymond didn't forget how to coach defensive backs. And Corey Raymond had a stockpile of talent in that secondary. He had a bunch of 5-stars that didn't pan out. Look, he recruited Sage Ryan as a 5-star. He recruited Mo Hampton, who was a highly regarded guy. He also recruited Elias Ricks, who was a 5-star, and Dwight McGlothern, and Jay Ward, and a lot of really talented dudes. But when Ed Ogeron ran the program into the ground, got fired, and Corey wasn't retained, all those guys left. That wasn't Corey Raymond's fault. He didn't stop recruiting. It was the circumstance around the program. And you're seeing it now. And time again, when LSU lands a cornerback, a player in the defensive backfield, you consistently hear the same thing over and over again. They laud Corey Raymond. So you want to get back to DBU? Yes. You got to coach guys up to be better. But you know what? You also have to have better talent. You got to have the Jimmies and the Joes. And Corey Raymond's making that happen. You've already got DJ Pickett, 5-star, number 1 cornerback in America committed. And now you go and you flip Kade Phillips, according to On3, the 65th best prospect in the country at any position. You go flip Kade Phillips from Texas, a kid from Missouri City, Texas, and you flip him from the Longhorns, who are coming in the SEC, by the way, coming off a playoff appearance, and they're preseason top 5, and you flip them to LSU. Yeah. Hat tip Corey Raymond. He deserves it. And that's why you should be confident that DBU is going to return, that this defense is going to get back to what it has been and should be, because you've got Corey Raymond and you've got Bo Davis and you've got so many amazing, talented coaches and great recruiters as well on the defensive side that are going to get the players necessary to build that defense back into what it has been in the past. Now, a quick thumbnail here on this class. So Kade Phillips becomes the 24th commitment for LSU's 2025 class. Of course, Mike Tyler committed on Saturday evening, became the 23rd commit, and now Kade Phillips on Sunday becomes the 24th commit for LSU's class. Tigers still ranked 3rd nationally behind Ohio State, Alabama, respectively, and he's the 2nd cornerback commit in the class. Of course, with DJ Pickett being the 1st, now Kade Phillips, the 2nd cornerback. If you're looking ahead to next year, it's interesting because Zy Alexander will be out of eligibility and Sage Ryan will be out of eligibility. And Ryan's playing corner right now, although he's probably a better safety. We've talked about that plenty. But anyway, so you're going to lose 2 there. Ashton Stamps next year will be a junior. J.K. Johnson has eligibility. Jair Brown has eligibility. Javen Toviano would be going into his 3rd year. And then the freshmen this year, P.J. Woodland, Bernard Causey, Michael Turner, they'd all be going into their 2nd year at LSU. So Stamps, Woodland, Johnson, Causey, Brown, Toviano, Turner. That's 7. Zy Alexander's, Pickett, Phillips, that gets you to 9. That's plenty on numbers. However, you have to account for the possibility of guys leaving in the transfer portal. So will they add another corner out of the high school ranks? And certainly if there is a corner available, a starting caliber corner in the portal, you target them. But the numbers at corner look really good right now as well. Big get for Corey Raymond, for Brian Kelly, for Blake Baker, for LSU, not only because it was a position of need, it's an elite talent, but you also took him away from Texas, and we say it all the time. Think of it on the flip side. There's a kid from Louisiana that you miss out on as LSU. It stinks, but it burns even more when they go to a team that you have to play every year. In this instance, you've turned that trick consecutive days on SEC foes. Mike Tyler out of South Carolina, and now taking Kade Phillips out of the Texas class and adding him to yours. So a big get. And who might be next? We'll find out. Of course, another big announcement coming up on Saturday with Jonah Williams, the number 1 safety in America, out of Galveston, Ball High School. Another kid from Texas that LSU's targeting. We'll see how that goes. We'll get that answer on Saturday. Okay, when we come back, Brian Kelly met with reporters after practice on Saturday. He told us, he kind of caught us up on where LSU is now going into the final week of fall camp relative to what he thought going into this fall camp session. We'll get to that as we continue. Locked on LSU, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Man, we've had such a great opportunity to talk about FanDuel here on the show for so many weeks now as we've been getting rolling. And, of course, FanDuel, is America's #1 sports book. Well, right now, we've got a little something different for you. Now, through September 22nd, that'll take you into the start of the NFL season, all FanDuel customers can bet just $5. Bet just $5, and you get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season game, every Sunday afternoon, all out-of-market games. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel, proud partner here of Locked on LSU. So LSU was out on the practice field on Saturday. Long workout, 45 minutes indoors and a good hour and a half outdoors. And afterwards, Brian Kelly, we were there. If you missed, by the way, our practice report, would highly recommend you check it out. Of course, just look back a couple episodes here and you get the full practice report from Saturday. We recorded it Saturday as soon as that scrimmage period was over. Well, Brian Kelly met with reporters afterwards, and I got the second to last question. And I took the opportunity to ask him two. One was about preparation for USC, which we'll get to here in a bit. The other was one that I left intentionally very open-ended. And if you've ever followed this show or any of the shows that I do, you might have heard me say this before, but when it comes to asking questions over a lot of years, a lot of press conferences, one of the things I've learned is, of course, you always want to avoid a yes or no question. But you also want to avoid leading questions, meaning in the manner in which you ask the question, you're not suggesting the answer to the interviewee. So if you leave it open-ended, then they take the answer wherever their mind goes. And that was my intention with this question. And the way I phrased it to Brian Kelly was such. Said, based on where you are today and where you were day one at the start of camp, what did you maybe have some trepidation about when you started camp that you feel better about today? I didn't ask about a position. I didn't ask about a side of the ball. I left it very wide open, effectively to say, hey, the day y'all were starting practice, you felt pretty uneasy about something. What do you feel better about today? And it was interesting because, again, I didn't say one side of the ball, but he ended up giving me more than a 2-minute answer to this question and talked about both defense and offense. And I'm going to take those one at a time. But he started, again, not a leading question, but when I asked that question, what did you not feel great about then that you feel better about today? This is how he started the answer.
I like the way our corners have held up on the outside. I think, anytime you go into a year, you want to make sure you eliminate big plays. And one of the things that we all lived through last year was too many big plays on the defensive side of the ball. We've eliminated those big chunk plays, and that was job one. I think for me, as we continue to progress, we have to clearly, find ourselves, defensively, what we're going to look like, up front. We're still kind of moving guys around inside, but we've got 5 guys that we're rotating in. I think our edge is going to be pretty good. I mean, I like what we're doing on the edge. But you saw what we saw today. I mean, our pass rush is going to be, manufactured. It's not going to be just 4 down, pin your ears back. I mean, we're going to it's going to be nickels and safeties and linebackers and different guys coming from different pressures. And that's what Blake does. So I think I got a better sense of that, where the pressures are coming from. Our corners can hold up on the outside. If that continues to be the case, I feel pretty good about that. And then
that wasn't even the full answer. He got to offense. That was a minute and 32 seconds. Very rare in a press conference scenario that you're going to get an answer like that. But let's unpack what Brian Kelly said. First of all, the first thing out of his mouth, we can hold up on the outside. We all had the question a year ago. Secondary was atrocious. That's why you turned over your staff. That's why Corey Raymond's here. That's why you're able to go get DJ Pickett and Kade Phillips. But the corners are holding up on the outside. And it's true. They've eliminated the chunk plays. We aren't seeing in the team periods that we get to see, we're not seeing coverage busts and 60, 70, 80-yard touchdowns. We're not seeing it. Oh, you'll see Nussmeier patting the football, moving in the pocket, completion for 16 yards. That's happened. But that's just a really good quarterback and really good receivers making a play. But even when they get the 16-yard reception, how do you prevent that from becoming a missed tackle 60-yard reception? Think back to Keon Coleman in the opener against Florida State a year ago. They've eliminated that. He also said, try to figure out what they look like up front. They keep rotating on the interior. There's 5 guys that they're playing. There's 2 that we know are the starters right now, and it's Jacoby and Guillory, who's your best guy. He's your most veteran guy. He's your most violent guy with his hands, the best get off. Physically, Jacoby and Guillory is your best guy right now. Gio Paez, the 6-year in from Wisconsin, Jalen Lee, JVR Suggs, those 4 are there. The interesting thing when he said 5 is the next one Kimo Makaneoli or is it Don McKinley? And I don't have that answer. But Kimo is moving over from the offensive side of the ball. Don McKinley's a true freshman. McKinley has the gigantic ceiling, but it's very clear. And he even told us on my radio show when he committed that he really felt like he needed to work on his technique, his leverage, staying low. He's a giant human. He's 6'6", he's massive. You got to make sure you maintain leverage. But you know your first 4. I'm curious who that 5th one is. He also says he feels good about the edge, and he should. We've talked about that plenty. On Saturday, we saw Savion Jones get a one-on-one against Emory Jones. We saw Braden Swinson get a one-on-one against Will Campbell. I got news for you. There's not a better tackle tandem in the country those guys are going to see, only on par with them. So you're out there getting wins against those guys. You can compete against anybody. And that's not even talking about a guy like Deshaun Womack, who had a huge TFL on Saturday. Freshman Gabe Relaford and Kalaj Cobbins, who are going to be a menace. Trust me when I tell you that will be the best defensive end tandem. Look, Arden Key was amazing in 2016, but that will be the best defensive end tandem that LSU will have since Mingo and Montgomery, those 2 guys, when they're ripe and of age and ready to roll. And then you heard him talk about manufacturing a pass rush. If you weren't here for the recap episode Saturday, the scrimmage, I told you about Garrett Nussmeier throwing an interception. And it was an interception where he was being pressured, tried to throw the ball away, couldn't get it all the way out of bounds. PJ Woodland intercepted him. The pressure came from Kylan Jackson, a 2nd-year safety. Jackson came on a safety blitz. We also saw Nussmeier in the 2nd period throw the ball away on a pressure from Javen Toviano, who plays the star position. We have seen so much different pressure and so many different looks defensively from Blake Baker's defense. What Brian Kelly's trying to tell you is, listen, there is no Arden Key. There is no Mingo Montgomery on this team right now. There's not a guy like Caleb Von Chason that you're going to say, hey, line up on the edge, put your hand in the dirt, and go get the quarterback. You don't have that guy. Look, I think Braden Swinson's a really good player, but I don't think he's a dozen-sack guy. I think you've got good talent. You're really good on the edge. And I think in time, Cobbins and Relaford could be that when they get to that point in their career. But Harold Perkins is an elite pass rusher, and Swinson can be. And you can come on star blitz and safety blitz and corner blitz and generate pressure and manufacture it and get creative with the way you do it. And that's what Blake Baker is doing. That's what we've seen. And that's going to be really encouraging because it also confuses a defense or an offense. And I think that's one of the reasons I mean, I told you as well on Saturday. We saw the second teamers get a safety on a jailbreak blitz. They brought the house. We are seeing the level of difficulty on the offense increase by the creativity on defense. It's worked against the LSU offense. I'll be fascinated to see how that might manifest against the teams that LSU plays, opposing teams that aren't even familiar with practicing against this team every day. It's interesting. By the way, Brian Kelly also gave us an update on what he thought about the offense. And I'm going to get to that as we continue. And Kelly gave us an update on what the game week preparation for USC will be like, starting, as a matter of fact, this week. Don't you move. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day. It is Locked on LSU. We're thrilled to have you aboard with us here, and every single day I'm thrilled to tell you about our friends over at eBay Motors. Over at eBay Motors, passion, drive, and patience, that's the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. Of course, eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle, level it up to peak performance: superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. eBay Motors has been a great partner of ours here on Locked on LSU. Of course, with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. That's eBay Motors. So Brian Kelly updated the defense, and he also updated the offense. I want to get to that here in just a quick second. Of course, Locked on College Football is back. So we kick off the action with a live season preview, 7 o'clock Eastern. That's 6 Central, Tuesday, August 20th, on Locked on College 24/7 streaming YouTube channel. This 4-part series covers each of the 4 major conferences, with discussion on which ACC, Big 10, Big 12, SEC teams have a shot at an expanded college football playoff. Of course, excited to be part of this as well. So be sure to check out the special streaming of Locked on College 24/7 YouTube channel on our Amazon Fire TV, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Okay. Brian Kelly, as we mentioned, gave an update on what the defense he felt like had improved on from day one to now. Gave me a 1.5-minute answer. And he also talked about the offense. Here's what he said.
From an offensive standpoint, just, clean up a little bit of the execution. And then kind of let's begin this next week focusing on what we do well. I think the last few days have been, we've been painting with a broad brush. I mean, we're trying to do everything, We need to just focus on what we're going to do, and that is run the ball, take some shots, get the ball out quickly to our playmakers, and move to the next play.
Did you hear that? We're going to focus on what we do well. We're going to run the ball, take some shots, and get the ball out quickly to our playmakers. That doesn't sound like LSU's offense from a year ago, and it shouldn't, by the way, because you don't have Jaden Daniels. The offense centered around everything Jaden Daniels did well, which was Jaden Daniels running the ball 150 times and picking apart a defense and taking deep shots because you had freak show wide receivers. You still got freak show wide receivers. But I think I've come to this observation and maybe this conclusion so far watching 3 weeks of fall camp. Y'all, I think LSU is going to protect its defense by running the football. Now, I don't want you to roll your eyes and moan and say we're going back to the Les Miles era, because I don't think that's what's happening. But what I mean is, last year, LSU's offense was so elite, and they scored so much, and they scored so quickly, that the downside of that is that your defense was on the field a lot. And a good way to protect your defense is by running the ball and controlling the clock. Remember earlier in fall camp when Brian Kelly was talking about the running back position? And I made mention of it here because it was interesting what he said. He said they know what Josh Williams is. You're not going to see him a lot in camp because you got to get him to Saturdays. Basically, meaning we're going to ride that dude on Saturdays, so we don't want him taking hits and wear and tear in practice. Relative to John Emery, he said, we need to find out how John Emery's knee can hold up, so we're going to make him work pretty hard in practice. It was so interesting now that I hear that in hindsight, because ultimately I think what Brian Kelly is telling us is this is a team with that dominant offensive line that is going to try to run the football, that is going to try to control the clock. I think this LSU offense in Brian Kelly's mind's eye looks like what Michigan was a year ago. Like, do you remember that Michigan game? I think it was against Penn State where they didn't throw a pass in the second half. They just ran the ball because Michigan couldn't stop them. Couldn't stop them from running the ball. Or Penn State couldn't stop them. So they just kept lining up, running the ball, running the clock, run out the game. May not be the most exciting thing to watch, but if your unquestioned strength is, we all agree, is your offensive line, and your biggest question mark or weakness is how much better can you possibly be on defense? Well, one way to make yourself undeniably better on defense is put your defense on the field less. And a way to do that is running the football. And I think that's something we're going to see a lot of this year. I'm not talking about Jaden Daniels weaving through Florida's defense for an 85-yard touchdown run. I mean, power sets, too tight. I'm not saying we're going back to Les Miles, too tight in a fullback. And I think they're going to be way more creative. But I do think when they have the opportunity to shorten a game with a lead, to protect their defense, to burn some clock, I do think you're going to see that. And Caleb Jackson is a big physical back that can wear teams out late. It wouldn't surprise me one iota hearing that. If LSU's got a lead in the fourth quarter and they just take the air out of the ball, turn around, hand it to number 28 and say, hey, fresh legs, freak show, go run over people and break their will behind this awesome offensive line. And I think that's something that could very well happen with this team. We'll start to get the answers in less than 2 weeks now when LSU lines it up in Vegas against USC. By the way, I did ask Brian Kelly when USC prep began, because this is the final week of fall camp, but would they start now getting ready for USC? So I asked him on Saturday, when are you going to start your USC prep?
Yeah, we'll start Tuesday. We'll begin exchanging teams to give us a look at USC on Tuesday and kind of duplicate 2 weeks in a row of a game week preparation. So we'll go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday into a kind of a game bench control situation next week and then do it again. So, kind of back-to-back weeks, if you will. So if you think of it, next week is kind of the off week that you would normally have, your bye week, where you would do a little work on your opponent, and then leading into the game week.
Hard to believe, y'all. But this week, LSU is getting ready for USC. Starting Tuesday, LSU is getting ready for their opener against USC out in Vegas, a game that we have talked about for years, ever since it was scheduled, and now it's almost here. Y'all, week 0 is Saturday. College football is here, and I'm fired up for it. So make sure that you are locked in with us every single day right here on Locked On LSU. Of course, we'll get you ready. For an idea of how this week's going to go, the Tigers do practice every day this week, but no media availability Monday, Tuesday. We get practice access Wednesday. No availability Thursday, Friday. Then Saturday, they scrimmage in Tiger Stadium, and we have full access for the scrimmage in Tiger Stadium. So you better believe Saturday we'll have a full recap for you right here on Locked On LSU. Hey, thanks so much for listening to Locked On LSU. Now go check out the Locked On College Football podcast, from NIL deals to the never-ending conference realignment rumors. My buddy Spencer McLaughlin gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron. You can find the link on Locked On College Football in the description, so you don't even need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And as a matter of fact, I think Spencer and I recorded an interview. It might either be today. Well, this is Monday as we record, but Monday or Tuesday. But anyway, I'll be on soon talking to LSU, so you want to check that out. Okay, if you're new, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, subscribe, smash that like button, and hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. Until next time, it is Locked On LSU, your team every day.